perseverance. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.
Good morning and welcome to the cafe as White Cane Coffee presents Coffee and a Conversation. Brian Hackler with you on your daily local. We are in the White Cane Coffee Cafe. Got myself a fresh cup of Dragon's Roast. Come on down, get it in this special laser engraved tumbler, get it filled with your purchase, bring it back at 50% off the refill as a part of the White Cane Coffee Mug Club. While you're here, pick up maybe a scone or a Danish. Breakfast burrito is always great as well. And if you can't make it down to the cafe, that's no problem. White Cane is also available on DoorDash. Just place your order, have your favorites delivered right to your door. You can also order your favorite roasted food at home online at whitecanecoffee.com. This is Coffee and a Conversation. Our special guest this week, Kari Swanson of Core. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get right into it. Explain a little bit about Core and how it got started and your goals for this organization.
CORE stands for Choosing Openness Regarding Experiences. And I started it probably been 6 years now. And the reason I started it was I'm in the mental health profession. And I just felt that people in Warren really needed to kind of embrace mental health like we do physical health and be a little bit more aware of mental health issues as they were becoming quite prevalent. And then 2020 with COVID, that really took a hit with mental health. So the goal for CORE has always been to provide mental health treatment and education, as well as suicide prevention education, because the number of suicides that I was seeing, just suicidal individuals as young as third grade, thinking of not wanting to live, was really high. And I just felt that people needed to understand what to do in a crisis situation.
And I know, you've had a number of events. You have the billboards twice a year, and I know people have seen those around, and always great artwork and really interesting. I felt the way the students are able to kind of express those thoughts and images in their artwork. And what prompted you to start having the students do the art?
I guess I just felt that it would give a different perspective of how the students perceive mental health, and it would help Warren as a community kind of embrace things a little differently. Whenever there's youth involved in things, we kind of pay a little bit more attention. And I just felt that giving them the opportunity, we have a lot of untapped talent in this community as far as the arts, and to see what our local schools produce in the art department is pretty remarkable. So that has been really a fun thing. The first year we got maybe 10. The second year we got almost 30 submissions. So the word really got out in terms of wanting to do that. And then I started doing it with September. September was hard because kids would go back to school in August, and I wasn't prepared for that. Right. So now for the May submission, they submit both May and September. So then the committee that judges or decides, we pick 6 of those. And I'm hoping to increase. I would love to increase it to 10. Yeah. And this year we actually had Snell's donated to be able to sponsor a billboard, which is wonderful. So people can do that as well. So that was neat. But the billboards are something that is really special and something that will hopefully continue.
Yeah, and and it's interesting to me because especially in May and September, I'm doing a lot of traveling for our sports site, and so I get to see almost all of them. I think at one point or another, traveling around through the county, but just to see the different, how vastly different from one kid to another, and how they express and what their thoughts are. Like you said, especially with the youth and see kids as young as third grade, just having those kind of ideations, and talk a little bit about what you saw from a mental health perspective. Like you said, when the pandemic hit, I'm sure it wasn't just like all of a sudden. Was it a slow build kind of? Here's one, here's another. Oh my gosh! Now we're starting to see a trend.
Well, it was the isolation. The here we had kids that were so vibrant and so outgoing, and then all of a sudden the world closed and they weren't in school and sports got shut down, and it was that, what do I do? I don't know how to be isolated. I don't know how to not be around people. And then those who didn't want to be around people then got further
Right.
isolated. So it was really an effect that was awful to see. And I don't think we're done seeing it, honestly. I think in years to come, we're going to really see the effects of what the pandemic did as far as mental health. And the thing that was really hard, I think, is when you think about the little kids in elementary school who went to school with masks and never knew anything else but masks. They couldn't do the facial expressions. They couldn't understand the nonverbal things. And so that has a toll on mental health as well, because they couldn't see happiness, sadness, anger. None of that
Right,
was
yeah.
revealed
Yeah.
with a mask.
Well, we talk in the physical health, right? When you go to the hospital, they've got the poster, that has the facial expressions on it, and well, tell me how you're feeling based on this. And now like you said, they're not maybe sure, and because they're so young, they can't necessarily verbalize. So it goes right from the mental to the physical in some instances.
And the hard part with that too is parents are really leery to talk about what those inner thoughts might be for kids, especially with those who are struggling with, do I want to live, do I not? And we know it's out there with social media.
Right.
So parents have to be able to address those things, because kids are afraid of that when they have those thoughts, but they don't know how to communicate it. So we have to learn to ask the question. And that's the big thing that CORE encourages people to do, is learn QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer. And that's one of the things that CORE offers. And I've done a lot in the community for that, but it helps people to understand what to do in a mental health crisis, just the same as if somebody were choking and you had to do CPR before an ambulance came. It's the same sort of thing. So it's making people feel comfortable with asking that question. And a lot of times people think that we're going to plant the seed for suicide if you ask the question, and that's not true. That's a myth. So just making people feel comfortable and being able to say, what are your thoughts like? Or even for little kids, whoever sometimes wish you didn't wake up in the morning. It's a little more subtle, but it lends you into their thoughts.
Well, and you talk about, parents got to are in the best position to have those conversations, because like I know, with my kids, especially, now they're a little bit older and they're able to verbalize a little bit more, but when they were younger, they're still learning how to express with words what they're thinking and feeling. And as a parent, because you've been there, from day one, and understand how that verbal evolution has occurred, you're in a better position to understand when a kid maybe says something that you're like, that's not right. That's not typically what you would say, as opposed to even a mental health professional wouldn't necessarily know for that individual child.
Right.
Hey, this is not something that is typical for them to express, and is maybe concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so how would you maybe help parents to get a better understanding of how to have those conversations, and maybe get past that fear of having that conversation?
I think it starts with feelings. I think it starts with talking about feelings, and it also starts with demonstrating your own self, of what you're feeling, and expressing that in front of your children, so they know that feelings are okay to talk about and negative feelings are okay to talk about. Sometimes people don't like to talk about not liking someone. We should like everybody. Well, we're not going to like everybody. So we do have to own that and be able to say, what do you do when you don't like somebody, or what does that feel like? And start to really help kids understand their feelings. And then if they are sad, being able to rate. I like to rate things with kids, like on a scale 1 to 3, even
Right,
with
yeah.
little kids. 3 being I'm really, really, really sad. 1 being I'm not sad at all. Those rating scales sometimes are good for kids to be able to talk about it, and then saying what would make the 3 go to a 1. What could we do to decrease that? So those types of things I think help parents to kind of gauge that a little bit better.
It's interesting that you mentioned that hey, we're not going to like everybody and not everybody's our friend, and how that's kind of counter really to what what they're doing in education now, and especially in the preschool through younger elementary, where it's like, okay, friends, let's get all our friends, and and I understand they're trying to encourage everybody to like each other, but I know my first grader has come home a couple of times, and she's like, well, they're all my friends, and it's like, okay, but how many of them do you play with?
Right.
Who do you talk to throughout the day?
Right.
Those are the ones who are really, your friend. And we do it in the context of like, if she wants to invite kids to a birthday party or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, why do you want to have this person? Oh, well, they're my friend from school. Okay. Did you play with them at recess? No. Did you talk to them in class? No. Why do you want them to come?
Right.
Right.
And it's good for them to know to be nice to people, but also that if someone's not nice to you, you have to learn and talk with your parents about how to handle those things so that you're not feeling bad about yourself and nervous about talking about
and obviously this is not just with kids either. I mean, everybody, as you mentioned, during the pandemic, especially, probably in some way, shape, or form, feeling some form of isolation. And now that we're past that point, physically, hopefully, we're not going to go back anytime soon. What kind of resources are there available for people who may be having trouble reintegrating themselves back and getting out of that?
We have a lot of resources in Warren as far as behavioral health and mental health. Sunrise Collaborative, Family Services, Beacon Light, CORE offers services of in-home. I have helped people in crisis situations. It's difficult sometimes to get into mental health treatment immediately if you're not going to the hospital. So being able to be that interim for people is something that CORE does provide through funding. And it's a free service to people so that they're not feeling alone with that. I think that there are some different support groups. I would like to see some more support groups in Lauren. I think that that is one thing that we lack is some support groups for people to kind of feel that they're not alone in what they're feeling and how they're feeling and get other views of how to deal with certain things. I think that that helps people feel better knowing that you're not alone in what you're feeling. But I think this time we're kind of spoiled right now with the weather in the end of November, but we are going to hit the time where seasonal affective disorder really comes into play, and especially around where we live because we don't see the sun then for 6 or 7 months.
Right.
And that can be really debilitating for people. And I think that people need to understand that they can talk to somebody. There's also a service 988. They want to make it similar to 911 for crisis, medical crises, but 988 is a mental health crisis number. And you can text, you can call, and it's not just for someone that's in need. It's also if you have a friend that's in need and you want to know how to help somebody. You can call that number 988 and talk to them about what the need is or what to do, and they'll walk you through it. But the texting is nice because we know that's what our youth do, and that's how they're more comfortable, and it's important to hit their comfort level. So 988 does provide that resource for people, but it's understanding that a lot of people with seasonal affective disorder don't want to take any medications or any help because they know that once April and May hit,
once
they're
the sun
going to feel
comes back,
right. but is it worth going 6 or 7 months feeling that way
Right.
down
Yeah.
in the dumps for that long? So it's, again, you have a headache, you take a Tylenol. You have
Yeah.
a stomach ache, you're going to treat it. So if you're not feeling good internally, let's figure that out.
And how much of it is just that perception that we've had society for so long that even just going to therapy was something that was like, oh
Taboo.
yeah, like, oh, you're a therapist, right?
Yeah,
like
something's wrong with
yeah,
you.
like I'm gonna catch
Mhm.
it
Right.
if I talk to you.
Right.
And what changes have you seen societally from a mental health professional perspective
Mhm.
that have maybe lend itself to people being more willing to go through something?
I think people are starting to understand that there is a connection. The physical health needs to be, the mental health needs to be as important as the physical health. And I think they're starting to see that it's not just crazy, it's not just psychosis or the real big mental health things. That depression is big, and that is before suicide.
Yeah.
So I think the suicidal increases that our society has seen has really started to understand that mental health is important. And one of the things that I've seen that is really kind of, there's a lot of commercials on mental health.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of commercials on people addressing their mental health, on even stars coming out and saying, I suffer with anxiety, and this is what I do. And there's a lot of computer things now. There's that HERS that they go on and they can have conversations with people via Zoom. I think that that's one thing that COVID did help with, is making it easier for people to have therapy in their home without having to go out. So I think that those things, I think that we are starting to address it differently. We still have a ways to go, but I do like the trajectory that we're in.
Well, and I want to touch on that. We talked about, one of the good things about COVID, right, was that people realizing, Zoom and virtual meetings and things of that nature. How much does that knock down a barrier for somebody who is depressed and I don't have to leave, right?
It's huge because there are a lot of people, if they have agoraphobia, where they don't want to go outside and they have that anxiety going from the house to the car to the doctor's office, that takes that down and they can have therapy in their homes. People who are really anxious about going out and depressed, you're not getting up. I mean, you can have your therapy in your PJs in your bed. I mean, you can.
Right, you're sitting, laying down in bed. Like,
Right.
Hey,
I mean,
okay,
you can.
Right, yeah.
So I think that has helped people also, because we're targeting the people that are truly struggling and couldn't get out or canceled their appointments because they didn't want to leave the house. So I think that really has helped.
All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break, get a word in from our sponsor. We'll be right back with more Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cake Coffee.
The only thing worse than being stuck at home is being stuck at home without coffee. We can't let that happen. Browse our selection and order online. From sweet to tangy, hot or iced, we have something for you. White King Coffee, because every cup makes a difference. Cheers.
And welcome back to the White Cake Coffee Cafe. And this is a Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cake Coffee. And I've got myself a fresh cup of Dragon's Roast. Brian Hagler for your daily local. Our guest this week, Kari Swanson of Core. Just what did you get
I got
today?
a white chocolate raspberry chai.
Oh,
it is delicious. I've never had it before.
Well, there you go. Now
Very
you got
good.
a new favorite.
I know.
You can stop on down to the White King Coffee Cafe in the plaza across from Tops. Pick up a white chocolate raspberry chai or black cup of Dragon's Roast like I got right here. Either way, whatever your pleasure, stop on down to the cafe, pick yourself up a fresh cup, say hi to the friends folks here at White Cake Coffee. And, Kari, we were talking a little bit about some of the, I guess they call it telehealth, and being able to Zoom with therapy sessions and things like that. Obviously there was a lot of stuff that came out of COVID, but that was one of the, surely it's got to be a huge positive. And again, from a mental health professional perspective, how much does that maybe alleviate some of the stress. Like we're talking about, some of those patients don't would cancel appointments.
Yes.
And now you're not maybe having to worry about the cancel because
Right. I think that that's been very helpful. I know in the jail too, we still are using some telehealth to be able to provide those services. So I think that it helps people feel that they can get the help that they need, and it's not a barrier anymore of I can't make my appointment and I can't make my appointment because of the mental health.
Right.
So I think that that has really helped people be more attentive to their mental health.
Well, and you hear so often, things like phrases like break the cycle and things like that. But and especially like you mentioned, for somebody maybe with agoraphobia, okay, I've taken that step and I've called it, and made an appointment, and then the date comes and and then they call and cancel. And how beneficial is that? That maybe they're able to then transition from those virtual appointments to being able to.
Yes, because the therapist can do different things. Like if I had someone with agoraphobia, I would start in the house and then ask them if they go to the front porch. And then as you know, you can do those steps with them, telehealth, to eventually then get them to the office. So it's great stuff that being able to have some steps to do instead of saying, well, I can only see that.
And you mentioned a little bit about the 988, and that's relative. I mean, that's what, about a year old, less than a year. So
yes, I did. They changed. It was an 800.
you're right.
A number. But I think that they changed it to again kind of bring the focus back on. We have 911. Now we have 988. So it's easier to remember, and it also makes you realize that it's crisis. And normal. So that it's not a very long number that you have to try to remember, but then also the texting part. And my understanding is youth are responding very well to it in terms of being able to help their friends by texting and asking questions to help, and then also just help themselves.
It's interesting because again, especially on the sports side, I think we're dealing with a lot of that, multiple generations, right? Like when we talk to coaches, so many of them want to have a phone call, and then when we talk to the athletes, text, right? And it's just one of those things that I think maybe we don't necessarily realize that to help them, we got to meet them more.
Absolutely. And I think that it is absolutely a generational.
Yeah. And so what have you seen, within the profession, the response to 988 and how beneficial?
I think people have been very happy with it because people are using it, and it's increasing their awareness of even their own. They're able to call and talk about what they're going through, and then getting that push to then go and see a therapist or talk about medication, or even go to the non-prescription stuff. There's a lot of great herbal stuff too for those that don't want to try the prescriptions.
And so obviously, like you mentioned, we're approaching it's hard to believe we're
I know.
coming up on the end of November already, and Thanksgiving just less than a week away now, and Christmas right around the corner. And obviously most people, when you come around this time of year, friends, celebrations and stuff. But for a lot of people, this is that time of year, not just the seasonal affected, but just that holiday season, where maybe they've lost their loved ones, or they're feeling and it needs to increase. What are some of the resources that are available for some of the people, especially this time? Maybe interesting.
I think again, the 988 number, and then reaching out to the local therapists, organizations. Volunteering is a great thing for some people who are feeling lonely. It's hard sometimes for them to do that, but volunteering is really a great food drive. Helping with, there's a lot of local food pantries and food, like Christmas dinners, Thanksgiving dinners. Sometimes when we give ourselves to other people, that helps us feel better too. So I think that all of that is good stuff for people to do. But just being aware of how they're feeling and having someone that they can talk to about that, of that maybe this is going to be a different kind of Christmas. My feelings are different about this, and us as friends and family recognizing that and not putting expectations on other people, that we know that there's been a life change that has happened, or that we're recognizing behavioral changes.
Yeah. And so really it's kind of important, for example, to say, you have a friend that you talk about,
Mhm.
for,
Mhm.
Christmas or holiday or whatever, about them. Just pay a little extra
Mhm.
attention for behavioral kind of changes.
Mhm.
Make sure that, hey, feel it.
Yeah. Are you feeling okay? What can I do? And not putting that, but why don't you come over to our house? I mean, the invitation is fine, but sometimes it's good to say, well, what do you need? What can I do to help you? And sometimes people might say, I'm okay with you, and you have to respect that.
Yeah.
But also ask, are you sure? Like
Yeah.
if they're showing some signs of being down or being very depressed, then making sure.
How often or how much of an impact can simply sending a text? You're thinking about it.
Mhm.
How,
Big.
how big?
Yeah, that's a big. I think that's huge. Cards are huge. Just I'm thinking about you. I know this could be a difficult time. You don't have to go into details, and neither does the other person, but just that knowing that you're on somebody's mind, or that they know that this is difficult for you, that does a lot for somebody's psyche and spirit, and just feeling that they're not alone.
And I mean, for a couple of years now, but obviously I've so much not a good time
Mhm.
in the community. Uh, when you have a young person, young people in that case, take their own lives in such a short span, uh, how much does that impact the community? And how, as a community, can we best serve each other in those kind of times to make sure that it stops there?
I think sometimes communities think that we're in a bubble and it's not going to happen here. And then it does happen here. And I think the community really rallies around each other and our youth. I think that we realize as a community that we really do need to meet youth mental health needs. And I also saw the youth come together. They developed a young person's coalition for suicide prevention and did some things with that. And I think that really was positive that came from that. But I think that it's always in the back of people's minds, but I think it needs to be so that we don't forget that things do happen and our youth are going through things. And again, social media is not always the best thing, especially for our youth who has full access.
And there's always questions, for us as a user organization. These are one of the things that when I was in Colorado, they talked about military that you can run into what they call cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was attributed to news coverage or media coverage because attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so what advice would you give to us as a news organization that, if another suicide were to happen, in ways to cover it and that it's newsworthy, but doesn't necessarily maybe lead to other people thinking it's
Right. And I think the glamorization isn't as real as what some believe that it is. I think tactful coverage um, from the standpoint of what can be behind why somebody would do something and what parents need to look for or ask, or what teachers need to look for or ask, instead of the glamorization. I think comes from people thinking that the more that you give it attention, other people are going to want to do it for attention. And I don't necessarily believe that. I think that addressing the reasons why that may happen is more beneficial, but the community needs to know what's happening in the community. And I think that things will then get happen in those situations here.
And you mentioned that the kids came together and
Mhm.
formed that coalition. We were there for the first suicide awareness
Mhm.
walk. Had to hold it switched
I
from I
know.
think from the park to the high school because of
They
weather,
were
but
very resilient.
yeah, but that quick adaptation though too, like you mentioned, resiliency
Mhm.
in kids, and I think sometimes we feel like you know even kids in high school are
Mhm.
still fragile like they were when we were cradling
Yeah.
them in our arms, and they're really not. They're
No.
far more resilient than
They
I
are.
think we give them credit for.
And the schools, especially here, the school district is very willing to embrace mental health. It used to be that you couldn't mention suicide in school. You couldn't hang up posters that had a suicide prevention hotline on. And the school district here has embraced for and has allowed for to do a lot of programming within the school and a lot of awareness
Yeah.
things. So I think that's really important too, to to give those resources and to have those posters and to have things that you don't know what's going to change somebody's day.
Yeah.
Like if they see something that says you're okay or you matter, that might be enough to somebody. And teaching kids to put the phone down and talk to each other. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, that's a
yeah,
big thing. And that's part of the isolation right now is if we were 14 years old, we'd be sitting by each other, texting
Yeah.
each other,
Yeah.
not communicating with eye contact. So I think promoting that as adults is important and modeling that.
Well, and not only that, but if there are instances where there is kids are kids and they're
Right.
going to pick on each other at times, but when you and I were 14 years old, that stopped,
Right.
right? Like you left the building and
Right.
you were away from that person, it stopped.
Yeah.
But now it's
Keep going.
24/7 because
Absolutely.
now they're TikToking,
Yeah.
Snapchatting, Instagram.
There's
all that.
bullying
Yeah.
that continues 24/7, where we could get away from it and have a break for 12 hours and then go back and have at it again. But you don't get a break.
But so you have again, these kids are dealing with that on one hand, but on the other hand, it seems like they're far more willing to have mental health discussion than maybe any generation.
Absolutely. I think that they're in the thick of it more and they see the mental health and it's part of the world that they grow up in, where we didn't have that as a kid.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that they see that and social media shows that. You know, there's a lot more of that happening in social media and people are talking about it more than they ever did in the generation. So I think that that's important. And I do think that our younger generations are much more open, tolerant, accepting than past.
It's almost like that catch-22. It's
Yeah.
it lends itself to that you don't get away.
Yeah.
If there is negative, but on the flip side, it has opened the door to there are all of these resources available and they're available immediately. So again, it's
Yeah, it is.
You just it's balanced.
It's
Like,
the
so many
balance.
things
That's
in
what-
life. It's
Yeah.
balanced.
Moderation.
So again, got the holidays coming up, and I know you usually have in September, October, big event downtown. How did that kind of all come about, and how beneficial has it been, before to have that and kind of have a gathering place for people to come and see it?
Unfortunately, this year we weren't able to have it. We will be back at it next year. But it's a nice thing because the community just kind of gathers together and there's remembrances of people and just being able to, again, talk about things that are happening. I think it's been good. People have asked about it. A lot of people missed it this year, so that was nice. The local YMCA has been tremendous support, of course, and we did still do our basket raffle there. So that was good as well. So we will do that again, and we have a golf tournament that takes place doing it in August. I don't know,
Stay
be here
tuned. Stay
before I
tuned.
know.
We'll have the details.
Exactly.
So I think before we wrap things up here, Jim, just want to have you know, if people are in need of resources, obviously 988
Mhm.
is immediate. But if they want to reach out to you at CORE, how can they do that?
They can do that through my cell number.
Do you?
That's 779-0767. They can also call the First Methodist Church where the 501c3 is, and they can call 723-4930, and they can reach me through there as well.
All right, okay, that'll about wrap it up for our Coffee and a Conversation this week. Thank you so much for taking some time. And again, want to encourage anybody out there, if you're having any kind of mental health issues or crises, text, call 988, reach out to CORE, reach out to someone, please do that. Take care of yourself mentally, physically through this holiday season.
And thank you, Brian, for all your support through CORE. I mean, you've been a big advocate and supporter, and I do appreciate you and your.
Well, at Your Daily Local, one of our primary goals is to build this community. People are struggling, mentally, physically, or otherwise. So we want to be a part of helping you. If you are struggling, again, 988 text, call. Please take care of yourself over this holiday season. Everybody to enjoy the holidays. Kari Swanson, again, thank you so much for taking some time with us.
Thank you.
We will be back next week with another episode of Coffee and a Conversation presented by White Cane Coffee. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy it.
You know what would make that better? A cup of White Cane coffee.
Wow, that really is great coffee.
White Cane coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
It's not just about music lessons. It's about hard work, perseverance, dedication, self-expression, making memories. Let's make memories together.